Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Spirit Lift Sunday. I'm so glad that you're able to join me here as I bring in insights for what is best for humanity, insights that Spirit's been sharing with me over the last couple of days. So it has been a couple of weeks since I've done a show. I've been traveling and spending quality time with my family and quality time with myself. I actually spent a week in Sedona, Arizona, doing my own life celebration. It was my birthday, so I sent myself off on a little mini me vacation. And then last weekend I was in Palm Springs doing some heart storming with a friend of mine. And just to let everyone know that the next couple of weeks through the middle of August are going to be iffy. I'm actually going to be doing some vacationing with my family. And so this show and all of the other Fearless and Free TV shows and teachings are going to be sporadic until we settle back into the new school year. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that. Okay, so what Spirit's been reminding me this morning is that we are all the light. And we are all the way, and that we're all one with the energy, the infinite divine intelligence many call God. And I communicate quite often with Yeshua. He was known as Jesus in his human incarnation, his last human incarnation. And he asks me to communicate and to call him Yeshua. He actually refers to me as baby sister, which I think is really sweet. I have a feeling my understanding is that I was actually his baby sister in that particular lifetime. So he still refers to me that way. And this morning he was coming in and talking a little bit about his name and what he taught. So what he was explaining to me, and I'd never thought of this before, is that when Constantine changed his name from Yeshua to Jesus, it changed the gematria, the numerology of his name, and actually downgraded who he was on the planet from a higher vibrational frequency to a lower vibrational frequency. And now I have one friend who has done the math and explained that it's basically the same vibration as I think Lucifer, but I don't specialize in gematria, so I'm not going to say that for sure. What Yeshua was explaining to me is that when his name was changed, it lowered his vibration, the vibrational frequency of his name and his teachings to a much lower frequency. And it changed the frequency of his name and his teachings from that of teacher and student to master and servant. And that vibration is still what's running through our collective human experience, is master and servant. And that was never his intent. His intent was to be teacher and student and to teach others how to find the light and the way and the oneness within themselves. And the way that his teachings were manipulated were just enough to create a master and servant, servitude kind of relationship where only through him can people find the love and the light of God and heaven within themselves. And that basically set him up as a middleman, and it changed his teachings from being based in love and spiritual freedom into fear and servitude, which I find really fascinating. I'd never considered that before. And so he was reminding me this morning of a couple of his teachings. And one of them was to not hide your light under a bushel. So I was being shown, and I was being shown this from him several years ago, an image of a candle and then a basket being put on top of the candle. and that the bushel was actually a bushel of fear-based beliefs. And so the light of source, which is actually in our heart, which is one of the reasons that fear has been used to encapsulate our hearts and to keep our hearts from working to their fullest potential. Because when the heart is basically encapsulated, like has fear blockages in it, the heart light, the light of source, the light of God can't work to its fullest potential. Our heart light can't work to its fullest potential. And that these fear-based beliefs basically create like a bucket that snuffs out the light, or at least prevents the light from fully emitting. And that removing the bucket, the bushel, the basket of fear-based beliefs then allows this heart light, the heart of source, the light of source, the love of source to grow in our heart and then expand it out. And then he was also reminding me of a song I learned as a child, that Jesus wants me for a sunbeam. And what Spirit's been showing me for years is that each one of us are a stream of light consciousness. We're all the light of source streaming through each of us like sunbeams. And that, Jesus wants us for a sunbeam. Seriously, is to remember that we are all the light. The light is within every single one of us, and the love is within every single one of us. And what he meant when he said to love your enemies and pray for those who spitefully use you, he's talking about loving those who seem the most unlovable by sending them love from within our own heart into their heart, so that their heart becomes open and healed. And that sending our light out across the world, out across the airwaves, that light that's inside of every single one of us actually dismantles the darkness. And that love that we emit from our heart actually dismantles the fear when we send it intentionally out across the airwaves, out across the entire planet. So if you imagine, like, each one of us has the ability within ourselves to be a tsunami of love and light, and we consciously spread that out. And then I was being reminded again of something I was shown years ago, and that is, if we imagine that we are all a source of light, we have within us the ability to light the candle of every person we touch. And it reminds me of a quote that Buddha had said, which was something along the lines of, one candle can light 1,000 candles. So if we imagine that our light, through us sending it forward, we ignite the lights in others. That's how we wake other people up. It's not by shaking them awake. It's literally sending them shockwaves of love and light. Oh my gosh. So I'm getting a visual right now of a defibrillator, right? If we imagine ourselves as human defibrillators, a defibrillator is the two-part electronic device they use to restart a heart when a person has gone into cardiac arrest, or they've gone into shock after being in an accident or an incident. So a defibrillator shocks the heart to start back up again. So the visual that I'm getting right now is for each one of us to imagine ourselves as human defibrillators, that we can actually send shock waves out across the planet. But these aren't electrical shock waves in the defibrillator sense. They're actually light waves that are emitted from our hearts. And our hearts are tremendous electromagnetic machines, essentially. And the love capacity of our hearts has the ability to wake people up, to ignite their own loving essence. And the light within us has the ability to light the lights of other people, to wake up their hearts, and to blast the fear that. So what I was being shown a couple of years ago is that fear works a lot like what I've been told that causes gunk in the arteries, so to speak. So the heart energetically can't work to its fullest potential because there's all these like clumps of fear in the heart system, and it creates blockages in the heart. So if we're able to then blast all that gunk, all that encapsulation out of the heart, then the heart works to its fullest potential. Our role, once we recognize that we are the source of light that streams into each and every one of us, we can then blast that forward, and it breaks up the blockages in our own heart, but we can use that to break up the blockages in every other heart on earth. And that's what I've been shown all morning, is to remember that we are the light. We are the light. It's in every single one of us. It's not just in one person or in one book or in one religious belief. It's every single one of us. And our heart light has the capacity to light up every other heart. So that's part of what I do every morning. I just never had the defibrillation visual to go with it, that I sit in my meditation in the morning and I send love and light out across the planet in waves like tsunami out across the planet. And then, so what I've been doing the last couple of days is adding, and this is interesting because I've never done this before, is imagine these waves of love and light, like shock waves, tsunami of light. And I've been using the obelisks across the planet as almost like radio towers. So I send this love and light out of my heart to these obelisks across the planet, and then they take it and they transmute it out to each other. So this idea of the obelisks, so they used to be used until I want to say around 2013. They were used just for broadcasting fear. But I have friends who went in and who know how to change the polarity of a lot of the places on our planet, and they changed the polarity of the obelisks across the planet to broadcast love and light. But they haven't been consciously used for that purpose, as far as I know. And I started consciously using them for that purpose, I want to say about a week ago, and visualizing them as like giant, as I said, like giant radio towers, and broadcasting love and light frequencies out of them in waves across the airwaves, and that those have the capacity to transmute everything. It's interesting what I'm hearing is transmission. So they create a transmission in waves out across the planet, and those transmissions then transmute the fear-based stuff that's being broadcast out across the planet. So, okay. I love it when spirit speaks to me while I'm on camera. So what I'm hearing is that in that sense, every single one of us is a broadcaster. Now, in my particular case, I just happen to have a camera that I'm broadcasting through, but our hearts have the capacity and our minds have the capacity to be broadcasters merely by energetically, by what we speak, by what we think, by the communications that we have. We are broadcasting. Every human being on the planet, whether they know it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not, is broadcasting. Our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our actions are all broadcasting. We're all broadcasting 24/7. Well, obviously when we're sound asleep, we might not be broadcasting, but we're all continually broadcasting out into the airwaves. And this is why the collective consciousness can start to shift by our own thoughts. So I started seeing this years ago, that there are the vibrations are kind of like a radio where you can tune in to a specific frequency. So if you think about, the radios we used to have where you'd have to turn the dial, and then you would go up and up and up and up the frequency from the lowest like AM, PM kind of thing. So you turn the knob until you get higher and higher and higher frequencies. So, but we can do that within our heart. So if we imagine our own heart being the dial and tuning up the frequency inside our hearts, every one of us have the capacity to do that. Most of the people on our planet are tuned into a very low frequency, because that's the frequency that's being fed into our airwaves. And so if you imagine that there's an airwave across the planet, it's kind of like, I'm seeing it kind of compared to the airstream. So there are airwaves that are constantly swirling around the planet, that our own thoughts, because thoughts are energy, are continually adding into. It's like one collective field around the planet. And our thoughts are feeding into the fields, and they're being picked up by other people, and we're all sharing these ideas at the same time. That's why someone can have an idea here in the United States, and someone else in Australia can have exactly the same idea at exactly the same time, because we're all like receiving these messages, and the airwaves are constantly coming in. So our mind picks them up, and our mind also broadcasts them. So we're all broadcasters, and we all have the capacity to broadcast at such a high frequency that it can transmute all of the lower frequencies. So my understanding is that one person in the vibration of love is equal to about 1,000 people in the vibration of fear. That's how powerful the heart frequencies are. And these lower frequencies are like mental frequencies. So, and some people would call them egoic frequencies, because they're fear-based. But I don't like to get into name calling of the ego, because the ego actually does serve a very important purpose in our human experience. It's the issue is that when the ego gets controlled by fear and shoulds, then it starts to become like hyperactive. And when we allow spirit and we allow love to blast open our hearts and remember that is the very essence of who we are, that we are all love embodied, and we are all light streaming through each of our hearts, then we can set the ego at ease, and the ego feels safe knowing that inspiration is in charge, and then that ego no longer needs to be afraid of who we are and who we are here to be. So I don't get into anti-ego at all, because it's our egos have been traumatized by fear. And when the ego feels safe, it allows us to be who we're here to be. And we are all here to be the light, and to be way showers, and to be light bearers, and to remember that we are all one in spirit, one one as source energy, having a human experience. Even though we might have different aspects of that, we look different, and we have unique personalities and unique expressions, that we're all rays of light from the same source. And that when our heart starts to open up and love blasts the fear out of our heart, that our hearts become able to work to their fullest potential. That's ultimately what the goal is. When our hearts are working to their fullest potential, and we are all emitting the highest vibrations of light, and we're all emitting the highest vibrations of love, then the fear-based reality that presently exists will cease to exist, because it cannot exist in our presence. It's impossible to exist in our presence. Darkness can't exist in the presence of light, and fear can't exist in the presence of love. And so when each one of us remember that we are the embodiment of that, and we hold that absolute knowing within ourselves, and we learn to recognize fear-based beliefs as fear is attempting to control the ego, the mind, and fear is attempting to control our hearts, that we become consciously aware of, is this thought I'm having based in love? Is this belief that I have based in love? Is this belief that I have potentially fear disguised as love? And that's the biggest conundrum of all, if you will, because fear is so good at disguising itself as love that is really difficult to recognize. So each one of us then need to consciously dive into our own bushel of fear and see what is fear disguised as love, and transmute anything that is fear with the power of love. And until we get to a place where individually our lives are guided like 99% of the time in the consciousness of love, and that our light enlightens everything in its path, and our light actually lights the way for others to see their own light. And that's why I always say, and this is kind of my tagline, is to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. That's really what this is. That's what spiritual freedom is. And that's what will create freedom for all of humanity, is remembering that the light is within, heaven is within, God is within. And when we go within and we find that inside ourselves, we can then broadcast that out across the entire planet. Broadcasting. And that will change the world. That will open up the way for the rest of humanity to find that love and that light within themselves. And so it's really important to understand that anytime that we are broadcasting fear, broadcasting resentment, broadcasting anger, broadcasting shame, and even when we're telling that to ourselves, and especially when we're telling that to ourselves, if we're holding any aspect of ourselves in blame, shame, resentment, judgment, we're diminishing our own heart's light. We're actually creating more encapsulation of the heart. So if we wanted to affect the world with these higher vibrational frequencies of love and light, that's why we got to work on ourselves first. Because I see people who want to change the world by telling the truth, but not having done any of the work within themselves to not have any fear-based and fear-based attachments to it. Remembering that fear-based is anything that is not loving. And that's where it gets tricky. So even the belief that a person can only get to God through Jesus actually is a fear-based belief disguised as love. It was twisted just enough by Constantine and his crew when they created the Catholic Church that it turned it from loving teacher and student into fear with a master and servitude to the master. And it was twisted just enough to make it a fear-based belief disguised as love. Now, one thing that I want to share is that's my understanding, and that each person needs to come to their own understanding in the time and the awareness that is best for them. I don't know what another person's soul path is. Your soul, your spirit, is the only one who knows what your path, what your soul path is. And you may continue to believe that the only way to get to God and love and light within is to go through Jesus to get to that. That might be your path. I know how it's been explained to me from Yeshua himself. And he said that his words were twisted and that he was never meant to be the only way. He was trying to teach us that the way is within ourselves, and that the light is within ourselves, and that source is that we are connected to God within ourselves, and to go within and find that inside, and then be that, and then be the love and be the light and show the way, be the way within each and every one of us. And So that's what the message was that he was showing me this morning, that we are all the light and we are all the way and we are all one with God, source, love, spirit, whatever your name is for the divine love, that the divine intelligence, the divine wisdom, the source of all that is. And none of us have ever been separate from it, except that our fear-based beliefs created the illusion of separation. And when we start to go within and start to align our heart with the heart of source and our mind with the mastermind, the mind of source, that we begin to understand that we were always connected directly with source, that we always had that love and that light within us, and that we were born with that connection. And fear created the belief in disconnection, and that we had to go through our fear-based belief systems in order to return to heaven within ourselves and return to God within ourselves. And those middlemen, in a sense, aren't really necessary. However, if a person believes they're necessary, then they are, because belief creates reality. And so I just wanted to share that with all of you. That's the message that was coming in this morning from Yeshua, is to remember that you are all the light and you are all the love and you are all the way and you are all broadcasters, which I find really interesting. And that we're all defibrillators and we are all waking up the world simply by broadcasting our energy and our love-based beliefs out into the collective consciousness, and that will transmute the fear, and our light going out into the collective consciousness will transmute the darkness. We don't have to be the ones to tell the truth, because our vibration becomes so high that the truth has no choice but to be exposed, and fear has no choice but to be dismantled, because it cannot exist in our light and in our love and in our presence. And we don't even have to be the ones to wake people up, because we are sending shock waves out across the planet simply by our being, our beingness, and our focused love and our focused light. So imagine we, again, broadcasting light that we are, that's being broadcasted from our heart, is waking people up, because it becomes so light that people can't stay asleep, can't stay in the dark, because the darkness can't exist in our presence. Now, I wanted to share one other thing that came in through me this morning. Just again, this idea of collapsing the darkness. What I was being reminded of this morning is why, again, people keep asking, is the light even real? Are we going to be stuck in this darkness forever? And is there really a plan? So what I was being shown this morning is to imagine the human construct, the systems, the construction of the fear-based matrix that we've been living in and that we're moving out of, to imagine it like a big 100-story tower that's being imploded. So when you watch a building being imploded, it happens really fast. It's like, and the whole building comes down. That's kind of what's happening right now. But we can't see what's happening, because what's happening is within the framework of the structure itself. So before a building is imploded, construction teams go in and they remove glass, they remove any valuable materials, they take down the structural walls, they remove structural integrity from within the building. Then the explosives are placed very strategically around the structure, around this tall building, so that when it implodes, it all comes down at once. What people need to understand is that that is how our old world construct is being brought down. So instead of getting frustrated that it's not happening fast enough and that we can't see what's really going on, understand that what's happening internally with this structure is the same thing that happens when a building is being imploded. It's very, very carefully taken apart from within and very, very carefully strategically placed mechanisms that cause it to implode. So we can't actually see what's going on within the structure. And yet we are being asked to trust that that's what's happening. And at the same time, a new structure is being constructed, and it's being constructed by our willingness and desire to construct a new reality. So we are all constructors of the new reality by who we are being and by our envisioning what these new structures will look like. We are actually creating them with our thoughts. And this is why I've been saying for months to stop thinking about what isn't happening and about what presently appears to be real, and focus our energy on the world we want to create, because we create it in our mind's eye first. We create it in the etheric realm first. So if we focus our energy on the world we want to create, we start creating it energetically before it shows up physically as a physical manifestation. Everything in our worlds begins first in the imagination, and then it becomes a physical reality. I mean, everybody knows that, like the house that I'm sitting in. This was once in someone's imagination. The entire new world is in our collective imagination. That's how we create it. First, we imagine it within our own mind. And that begins the construction of the new reality. Now, my understanding is that in the etheric realm, our new world has already been created, because enough of us have been envisioning it for enough time that it's actually been created. That's why a year ago, a lot of us were talking about the two earth split and why it's called old world and new world, because this new world has already been constructed on an energetic level. And so what we're going to see for a while is the old world and the new world coexisting within the same physical experience. We're creating the new world with our own imagination and our beingness and our broadcasting what this new world looks like, rather than broadcasting the fear-based stories. And I admit that I have posted a few things that were fear-based and I got called out on it. So I have to watch that myself. And that our imagination is what is bringing this new reality into existence. Our imagination is what's bringing it out of the imaginative realm, out of the etheric field, and manifesting it into our physical reality. We're all creators. We're all source energy embodied in each and every one of us. We're all creators, embodiment. We're all the embodiment of creators. So we have the capacity to actually create our reality. The human mind is incredibly powerful, one of the most powerful forces in the universe. We just haven't been taught how to consciously use our creative force. And instead, we've been living by default and creating a reality that is being fed to us through the media, through television. We've been unconsciously creating the vision that's being told to us. When enough of us understand that we are actually the embodiment of creation, that we are all creators, and that our minds have the ability to create anything we imagine, we can consciously use that creative force to create a new world. And that's what enough of us are doing, that our creative ability is what is causing the dismantling of the old worlds. We are all one. Each one of us are intercreating, whether we know it or not. when there are enough of us as bright lights, conscious bright lights across the planet, we as light workers, that's why we're called light workers and not light beers, right? We're all consciously working to create this new reality. It will become a reality and manifest in our physical reality simply because it must. Because enough of us are holding that new framework for it to happen. We just have to trust that within ourselves, and we have to remember that we are the constructors of our new reality. And also follow the source guidance within our own hearts. Remember this new reality, this love-based reality, this 5D reality, this new earth reality we're creating is a love-based reality. We are actually creating from our hearts. And that this is the reason fear has wanted to keep our hearts encapsulated, because the last thing the fear-based reality wants, or the controllers of the fear-based reality, or however you personally imagine it to be, wants us to not remember that our heart has the ability to create, and that our heart has the ability to dismantle fear. And so as long as fear keeps our hearts encapsulated, it's not able to work to its fullest potential, and it's not able to create the new reality. So each and every one of us need to make a deep dive within ourselves and to see where we are allowing fear to control our lives, where we are allowing fear to encapsulate our hearts, where we are allowing fear to create judgments and againstness and blame and anger and complaining and all of those lower vibrational frequencies that are fear-based. Those are all keeping our hearts from working to their full potential. And each one of us need to do that work within ourselves to determine how much love are we broadcasting, how much fear are we broadcasting, how much light are we broadcasting. What is it that each one of us is broadcasting from our thoughts and broadcasting from our emotions, broadcasting from our hearts? Are we broadcasting potentiality, or are we broadcasting what appears to be real and floating around in our worlds? I think what's important, and what Spirit was showing me months ago, is that we are no longer responsible for exposing the darkness and exposing the truth. That now there are, what I was being shown is, let the officials do their job. Let the officials do their job of imploding the old reality, while we hold up the light and shine the light for them to do their job. And we send the light forward and broadcast it so bright that the darkness can't exist anymore. It just can't, because we are shining so brightly, because we have taken the bushel of fear off our candle and allowed it to breathe and allowed it to shine to its fullest potential. And that our candle, our inner light, is lighting the candles of every person our light touches, until eventually the entire world is illuminated. That's how powerful we are. That's how powerful our hearts are. And that's why we're being asked to get out of our heads and to get into our hearts. And yes, and I know I'm being reminded that sometimes we get out of our minds. I must be out of my mind. Yes, and being out of our minds is a good thing. So yes, let's now try to get out of our heads and out of our minds and get into our hearts and unleash the shackles of fear out of our hearts and blast the fear-based beliefs out of our arteries and out of our heart system, and be the defibrillator that ignites the hearts of everyone else. It's like electricity. We are electrical beings. That electromagnetic field that is emanated from our heart can shock the hearts of other people awake. So rather than trying to wake other people up by sending them information, which doesn't work anymore, they are all getting the information. The information it was dripping and now it's in a steady stream. They are getting the information. What is happening is that they're getting the information from fear disguised as love. And so at this point, rather than trying to open people's minds to the information, this is about spreading our heart's light into the hearts of other people. And remembering that our heart has that capacity. So I wanted to share that forward. Thank you all for watching. I just discovered that my doorbell is ringing because my kids are here. Today is my son's 16th birthday, so I'm going to go celebrate his birthday with him. Do something really fun today. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to go spend the time with my family. Thank you all so much for watching and for listening, and for all of you in the chat. There are so many of you. Thank you so much for being here live and for sending love, for being the light that you are, and for being the love that you are. I have there for you. And I am so grateful to all of you for waking up your own hearts and for remembering who you are with so much love and so much gratitude. Until next time, remember to hold your light so high others can't help but find their own light, and to get bold, be fearless, and live free.